وهم بچه‌مون وهم بچه‌مون
تو حق بگو
حق ما
حق بگو تا لاولی
اونجا همون ترسون مدینا همون ترسون نگفتن یا یاردن تو آقای همون آقای کشیم
چی تو
دیگه من قضیه خدای محمد رضا راستی گفت محمد رضا بنی نداره قتل نکرده
متازه حرکتی کردم یا اصلا هیچ حرکتی نکردم.
In 2004, 15-year-old Mohammad Reza Hadadi was sentenced to death. Almost every country has stopped implementing death sentences for juvenile offenders, but in Iran, young men and women are still being executed for offenses they committed as children. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child is the most robust statement on children's rights ever produced and is the most widely ratified international human rights treaty in history. In Article 6, states parties recognize that every child has the inherent right to life, and states parties shall ensure to the maximum extent possible the survival and development of the child. And Article 37 explicitly states that no judge in any court under any circumstances has the authority to sentence juvenile offenders to death. This covers anyone under 18 years of age. The reasoning behind it is children lack the emotional, intellectual, and behavioral maturity to be fully held responsible for their actions. Sentencing juveniles to death or life imprisonment also disregards the opportunity to rehabilitate someone who is still very much in development. Iran ratified the convention 2 decades ago. However, it did so with a far-reaching caveat. The convention yields to Islamic law. This has serious implications for children in Iran. As a state party to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, Iran is legally obliged to treat everyone under the age of 18 as a child. But the Islamic Penal Code retains its own interpretation of the age for which a child can be held criminally responsible. If a judge decides that a juvenile offender was mature enough to understand the nature of a capital offense, they can be sentenced to death. The Iranian Supreme Court maintains that, quote, such individuals fall outside the scope of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And what are the ages of maturity in Iran? According to the Islamic Penal Code, 15 lunar years for boys and 9 lunar years for girls. And thus, Iran remains to be the world leader of executing juveniles. Attempting to circumvent the UNCRC, the Iranian judiciary routinely waits until juveniles are 18 or older to carry out their executions. Though the convention makes clear that it is illegal to sentence a juvenile to death, let alone execute them. International human rights organizations estimated between 73 and over 100 such executions have taken place between 2005 to 2016. Exact numbers are unavailable due to the Iranian judiciary's lack of transparency. The UN reports that more than 160 juvenile offenders are currently on death row in Iran. One of these people on death row is Mohammad Reza Haddadi. With the reformation of the Islamic Penal Code in 2013, judges now at least have the option not to sentence a juvenile to death for a capital offense. Before, they had no other choice. Again, this is dependent on the judge's perceived maturity of the juvenile at the time of the offense. However, judges have typically received little to no training on child development or child psychology. Iranian juveniles sentenced to death before 2013 can now submit a special request to the judiciary known as an application for retrial. If there were ever a case that needed a retrial, it's Mohammad Reza Haddadi's. In 2004, the criminal court in Kazaroun sentenced then 15-year-old Mohammad Reza Haddadi to death for the 2003 kidnapping and murder of taxi driver Mr. Ramat. After attempting to use the victim's stolen checkbook, Mahdi Sassani was the first to be arrested in September 2003. The arrests of Mohammed Taqi Haddadi and Karim Haddadi quickly followed. Karim told investigators that Mahdi and Taqi first assaulted the driver while he and Mohammad Reza were away from the taxi in which they all shared. The driver was then taken to an isolated location where he was brutally beaten, strangled, buried, and burned. While in custody, Karim implicated both Mahdi and Taqi for the murder, while they both accused each other. Mohammad Reza was the last to be arrested in October 2003. He was tortured for a day and a half. The principal investigator then presented Mohammad Reza with a newspaper article that cited the Chief Justice as being opposed to harsh punishment for juvenile offenders. Mohammad Reza was then placed into a cell with Mahdi and Taqi. Both men made Mohammad Rafa an offer in exchange for his taking the murder charge.
فقط بیگناه گردن
فقط
گرفته
38 میلیون پیل گردن گرفت.
خب همون سمت کی بگیری که مثلا طرف
احساسا
بیان تقیه نکشتن
پیل بیا برق دیوننش داشته دادشو دیش 2 تا داده تو خونه داشته ننه پیل برق داشته گفتن 8 میلیون دیدیم گردن بگید تو زیر 15 سالی ادامه نمیکنن. گفتم حداقل بلیسون رو بدم ننه اینا تقریبا بتونن یه زندگیشون رو بچرخن. خود من دارم سهرا زیر 15 سالم داری سهرا دارم دوباره
پول دادرش
نه.
Denied legal counsel or even the presence of a family member during the entire investigation, 15-year-old Mohammad Reza confessed to a crime he did not commit on October 30th, 2003. After he learned no money was given to his family, Mohammad Reza retracted his confession only 5 days later. But it was too late. Mohammad Reza received 15 years in prison for kidnapping, 1 year for hiding the body, and the death penalty for Mr. Ramat's murder. The co-defendants all received lesser punishments, even though both Madisa Sani and Mohammed Taqi were both over 18. The court never bothered to establish a motive for why Mohammad Reza would commit the murder. Instead, the judge referred solely to his retracted confession. A judgment is like your spit, the judge told Mohammad Reza's family. When it falls to the ground, you can't take it back. After the sentencing, both Mohammad Taqi and Karim Haddadi wrote letters to the judge where they admitted to lying during the investigation and that Mohammad Reza was truly innocent of committing murder. They made no difference. Mohammad Reza's appeal was denied, and Branch 42 of the Supreme Court upheld his death sentence on July 3, 2005. All subsequent requests for retrial have been rejected. At the time of Mohammad Reza's murder conviction, the law provided 2 options: a death sentence or pardon by the victim's family. Under the rule of Qisas, the victim's family can only choose a punishment in kind. Wanting justice for their loved one, Mr. Ramat's family chose the gallows. But today there are more options. The Islamic Penal Code now allows discretionary sentencing of juvenile offenders and opportunities for retrial. A retrial would allow the co-defendants to reenact the crime as it happened, to investigate aspects of the case that were formerly neglected to now be investigated, and a new judgment based on fact rather than a coerced confession. Mr. Ramat's family certainly deserves justice for his brutal murder, but given his age at the time and the circumstances of his confession, would denying Mohammad Reza a retrial before he is hanged truly be called justice?
بچه من گولش زدن حقیقت گفتن بیایی جار و گردن بگی بچه منم نالون بوده جار و گردن گرفته در توانتون هست کمکم بکنین بچه من از زندان آزاد بشه من دیگه حقیقت هیچ توانی ندارم
بنده در این قتل بیگناهم و ابدا قتلی انجام ندادم. به خاطر رضای خدا من از این کابوس چندین ساله وحشتناک نجاتم بدهید.